Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Welcome. Walaikum assalam. Mine and Kamkanat will make presentation.
Yes, sir.
So they'll be making separate presentation or joint presentation?
It's a joint presentation.
Joint. Okay.
Joint.
Please start then.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Specific.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir and ma'am. Today, I, Main Masal, will be presenting the recap of 15th of March along with Amkan's footnote. So, let's start with what is a manager and a leader. Every leader can be a manager, but not necessarily every manager can be a leader. There can be certain characteristics that both manager and leader can share, but they both have individual characteristics. Now let's look at some of the key features of the differences between a manager and leader. Manager strives for orderliness, stability, and status question in the given task, whereas a leader creates disorderliness, chaos when they operate. Since they bring about a new approach, a new vision, initially people do not accept that, and which leads to chaos in the operating system that they work for. Manager maintains the balance in the given task he is provided with, whereas leader tap into the new area, has a new vision, and brings about new approaches to get the task done. Manager has the authority by status and as position. We can have the example of a bureaucrat, which the authority he has with his status and his position, whereas a leader influences by his personality and has the power of his personality, which we can see from the example of Mahatma Gandhi. He influences the people in South Africa, and later on, when he moved to India, he influences the people here as well with his personality. Manager do things rightly. Manager has the ability to, if many managers work for the efficient task, they make the things right. But leaders do the right things, they bring about the new changes and work for that. Managers, they do not have any personal attachment towards their goal, whereas a leader has personal and active attitude towards the goal. They are very much indulged into their goals. We can have the example of Subhash Chandra Bose. He has the motto, "तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा," and at the same time he risked his life for his goal, for the attainment of success, or for the attainment of freedom, as he has the goal of attaining freedom for the country. Manager take calculated risks. They Manager take calculated risks. They work on every arena, whereas leader primarily work on the risky positions. Since he's bringing about a new approach, people will not accept it, and that is a very risky position. But they work on that. They have a new approach to that. Managers work around people, whereas leaders appears lonely. Initially, people will not accept it since he has the arena to work on the new approach. People will not really support him, and he has a very love and hated type of relationship with his people. Who supports him will love him, and people who are opposes of his cause will hate him, as mentioned by a couplet in the previous class by Majru Sultanpuri. मैं अकेला ही चलता गया जाने पे मंजिल, मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. That's all from my side.
Thank you, mine. Good morning, sir, ma'am, and my fellow batchmates. I'll be covering the remaining 8 points of differences between a manager and a leader. The manager tries to find solution acceptable as compromise, while leader innovate and originate newer ways to deal with the problem. In this context, sir cited an example of General Motors, where their general manager Alfred was caught in a situation where he had to look for a third way or an alternate way. One of the many functions of manager is to motivate his subordinate. For this, they often rely on reward versus punishment method, where they reward an employee as an appreciation and may punish them at their faults. While leader, they create trust by inspiring the masses. That's one big reason why we say managers has teammates, while leaders has partner in the cause. Moving on to the 10th difference, manager deals in processes and deadlines. It's more like a how and when kind of work, while leaders deal in opportunities and rather problem solving. Power and authorities of a manager lies with the chair or the position they hold and not the person. For example, a retired judge won't be able to preside over a case in the court. And in case of leader, their vision lasts forever. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, though not present here with us today, his vision is very much alive. Managers are identified by the organization they work in, and but leaders is known by his or her own personality. And next slide, please. The manager is said to be born once, while leaders are born twice. Their second life starts when they realize their sense of purpose. In this context, Sir gave example of Gandhiji's train incident from South Africa. Just like power and authority, roles and responsibilities are also associated with the position held and hence more or less remains constant. Leaders, on the other hand, they set their own goals, they plan their own journey, so their roles and responsibility are somewhat personalized. Manager has his eyes on the bottom line, while leaders over the horizon. Now, we are left with this simple question. Does the society needs more of leaders or managers? The answer is even simpler. We need both. We may not find both set of qualities in a single individuals, but we have business schools across the country to train managers. We do not have any such kind of institutions to train leaders. Leaders cannot be trained or produced. That was my time. Thank you.
Okay. So let us start with the Main.
Yes.
Main, what is your own assessment of performance?
So not so up to the mark.
Be specific. What you did in your assessment did well, and where you need to work further.
So I was not good with the explanation part.
And what could be the reason for it?
So I was prepared for it, but I mean, I was not well, so I couldn't speak much. What?
And Tamkinat, what about you?
Yes, sir.
What is your assessment?
I don't know. I get nervous, so I don't know if I did right or wrong.
Hmm. Have you made such presentations earlier?
It's my third presentation. I've made two presentation in Salma ma'am's course. That was a group presentation.
Okay. Hmm. I think many factors are because of this only. We when we experience some kind of pressure of the situation, and we are not able to give 100% in that situation. One which I have been always maintaining is our energy level during the presentation. So when we are enjoying our presentation, then our entire demeanor presents that feeling of elation or feeling of enjoyment that we have when we are making the presentation. So otherwise, we appear a bit bogged down, subdued, not in full flow. Especially facial expressions, the kind of it should be an animated face. That yes, I mean, the face should radiate emotions. Don't you think? So then we are able to make an impact on the audience. In terms of content, you did well, both of you. You covered all the points. The area which needs addressing is this expression part of it and the quality of expression. Otherwise, is good. Both of you have reasonably good command over language. But I'm talking about the quality of expressions, where our verbal talk is reinforced by our non-verbal gestures. especially facial expressions. So that is one part where both of you need to work on. And especially mine, when we state a couplet, then the way we state matters a lot. So that is something which you have to keep in mind next time.
Yes.
And
Thank you, sir.
now today we are going to have an exercise on communication actually, and for that purpose, let me announce a few volunteers which I have picked up based on their presentation performance, because we need the participants who are good in communication for this exercise, who trust their communication skills. So let me read out the names of participants. Incidentally, all of them are girls, so we'll have some reservation for boys also in this. That would be on voluntary basis. Riza Hayat, is she there in the class? Riza? Arma Rao? Arma is there? Yashasvi Singh?
Yes, sir.
Yashasvi. So you'll be one of the volunteer. Anam Rizwan
Yes, sir.
and Mahek Heather. Mahek is she around? Okay. So we have two, Yashasvi and Anam Rizwan, and I need four more volunteers, preferably three boys and one girl.
Sir, I can volunteer. Sabiha Akil.
Sabiha,
Sir, I can volunteer too.
okay. Who is that? The next one?
Adil, sir, Adil, Mohammed Adil Masood.
Sir, Arusha Tabassum.
Arisa Tabassum. One more from amongst boys, preferably. So Sabiha.
Sir, myself, Karan Agrawal.
Karan Agarwal.
Yes.
Okay. So I will request Yashasvi, Sabiha, and Adil Masood, and Arusa, and Karan. They may leave the class for a while. I repeat, Yashasvi, Sabiha, Adil, Arusa, and Karan. They may please leave the class for a while, and Anam Rizwan may stay
Yes,
back.
sir.
Stay back. So we will be those who are leaving out. We will be calling them in one by one. So Dr. Zareen, you may please coordinate this part,
Right, sir.
and we will call them in this order. That Yashasvi would be first to be called, then Sabiha, then Adil Masood, Arusa, and Karan. So they may be there in the waiting room, and Dr. Zareen will admit.
Right, sir.
Anam, you are there in the class, and your task is that you have to read
Okay, sir.
this case, which is a small caselet, which I am going to share on the chat box.
Okay, sir. Sure.
And this is something which others can also read.
Okay, sir.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry. I
just
think the full text is not available.
no, sir. So it's here till airbags in 1991. I'll just copy this.
Zareen ma'am, in that case, I will be sharing it with you,
जी सर,
and you can read it on the screen through some other mode.
बिल्कुल.
I have emailed it to you, Zareen ma'am.
So can I paste here only the rest of the matter so that
Yes,
okay,
yes,
sir.
yes,
Okay.
that you can do. Anam, just read it. Can you see the screen also now, Anam?
Yes, sir. I can. I can.
Okay. So this is the case which you can read and grasp, internalize, memorize, because you are going to narrate this case to one of your friend who is waiting outside. And the case, others can also read so that they appreciate what it is like. The situation is like this, that in 1991, Ford learned an expensive lesson in the value of barcodes. The problem arose when Ford found out that some airbags in its cars might leak burning gases as they unfurled during an accident, endangering the drivers they were meant to save. The airbag, supplied by a company called TRW, demonstrates the hazards of converting an experimental technology into a mass-produced good. An airbag is a complex system made up of sensors that detects an impact and then explodes, releasing a small bag of gas which temporarily inflates a parachute-like balloon to cushion the occupant from an impact of an accident, which is one of the most in-demand safety features in the new cars today. To meet the demand, TRW tried to accelerate the production by using robots to automate tasks which were previously performed by hand. An out-of-tolerance machine damaged the threading on a joint in the airbags, which might have allowed a few airbags to spill their gases. No injuries have occurred because of the defect, and TRW stressed that only few airbags had the defect. The only problem was that no one knew which airbags had the defect, for neither TRW nor Ford had used barcoding or any other system to identify individual airbags or the production lots they came from. What should Ford managers do? If they ignored the defect, someone might eventually be hurt, either from the accident, from the gases, or from an improperly cushioned impact. Furthermore, the company would be legally liable for ignoring a known product hazard. To play it safe, Ford issued a multi-million-dollar recall of 165,000 cars, even though the best estimates indicated that little more than 3,000 cars had the defective airbags. Ford also announced that it expected TRW to share in the expenses. Further, it renewed its contract with TRW, assigning 20% of the airbags business to the TRW competitors, with plans to routinely buy airbags from multiple sources by the mid-90s. This was a major blow to TRW, and it left the industry observers shaking their heads over the hidden expenses of not using barcodes. This is the case. So,
Sir, give me 3 to 4 minutes. Can I take 3 to 4 minutes?
3 to 4 minutes, you can read it a couple of times if you want,
Okay, yes, sir. Okay.
but 3 to 4 minutes would be a bit too long. And Annam, you can switch on your video, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will. I will. Just give me 1 minute more, sir.
I will request you not to jot down anything. Just make a mental note if you want to remember, because that is the exercise all about.
Yes, sir.
So, Annam, as I requested, that this is an exercise to
Yes, sir.
help us understand, appreciate how barriers creep in into our communication, and especially when things are communicated orally. So, if you have to take a mental note, only take a mental
Thank you.
note, not
Yes, sir.
any written note. So are you now ready to share this story with your friend who is waiting outside?
Yes, sir, for sure.
Okay. So can we invite Yashasvi now? Zareen?
Ji sir, I am texting her. Okay sir. Ji.
Yes. I will write it on the WhatsApp also group. Huh? Yashasvi will join.
Yes sir, I have texted there only on the WhatsApp group. She's joining. She has joined sir.
So Yashasvi,
Yes, sir.
Yashasvi, can you open your video? Yes.
Yes, sir.
And now Anam will share with you a story. Please listen to it very carefully. Try to memorize it when she narrates it, so that you can share the same story to one of your friends waiting outside.
Okay, sir.
So
Okay,
Anam,
so
now you can go ahead.
yes, sir. So I got a caselet about Ford and a company called TRW. So in 1991, Ford actually had learned a lesson regarding barcodes, that why barcodes are important in their evaluation of airbags and the car safety that they're providing to their customers. Okay, so the problem arose when Ford found out that some airbags in its car might leak, and because of that, the driver's safety will be hindered. So, a company called TRW demonstrated the hazards of converting an experimental technology into a mass-produced good. That is, they used to develop airbags. Okay, so what is an airbag? It's basically a system which provides a parachute-like structure. So whenever an accident occurs, it protects the driver. Okay, I hope you got it till here.
Yes, yes, yes. Please
Okay, okay.
continue.
Okay, so which temporary inflates a person? Okay, so now it is one of the most in-demand safety tools, the parachute that I'm talking about, which is produced by TRW. It is actually in demand by the car companies. So now TRW wanted to accelerate its production. It wanted to increase its production, so they used robots, in order to in order to have a full-fledged production of this particular thing. And but now what happened that they were so TRW, when after producing these parachute bags and stuff, they found out that there was some problem with some of the bags, but they were not able to figure it out, that where was the problem, where the gas was leaking from. So now what happened that some sort of accident occurred again, but no injuries actually were found. Okay, so now the only problem was the only problem which was known was that um, that airbag had the defect. Itna pata tha, but there was no further discussion that what was the defect. Okay, so now Ford wanted to play it safe. Otherwise, it would have seen legal notices against it, because it was not able to provide safety to its drivers or to the people in the car, right? So Ford issued a multi-million-dollar recall of 165,000 cars, and even though the best estimates indicated that little more than 3,000 cars, so they decided to have a recall of 165,000 cars. But out of these, 3,000 cars had the defective airbags, which was produced by TRW, and which was still, unknown that what was the defect in these bags, which were produced by TRW. Ford also announced that it expected TRW to become an expense holder with them. That the cars they're producing, the TRW should also be a part of this whole thing. Okay, so now obviously expenses increase for TRW, and that actually shaken the whole industry at that time. Seeing the expenses that was going to be incurred by Ford and TRW jointly. That's it. I hope you got the case, Yashasvi.
Yeah, I got pretty much of it, but I just want one confirmation. The barcode were issued by Ford or TRW?
The barcode was used by exactly the whole crux was that the barcode was not used by any of these two companies in order to find out that what were the defect in the airbags, which were actually providing safety to the customers or the
So
drivers in the.
we are showing the importance of barcodes, like
Yes, Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I got it. So I'm ready to relate to other person.
Yashasvi, you have got it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So in that case, if you have any clarification, further clarification to seek, you can seek. You have time for it. In the meanwhile, can we request Sabiha Akil
Sabiha.
to join?
Right, sir. Ji.
Anam, the case is starting as that
Indeed.
the company Ford in 1991 is
1991. Yes. Huh.
1991 is in collaboration with another company, TRW, which is responsible for manufacturing airbags.
Airbag.
And they, by this caselet, we are going to know that why barcodes are important, because later on it was found out that parachutes like structure, that is airbags, had some defects. And uske upar. Okay.
Okay, sir. So I'm texting Sabiha now.
So Yashasvi, please organize your thoughts in
Yes, sir.
terms of how you are going to narrate it, and please narrate it to Sabiha Akil, who is joining shortly.
Okay, sir.
Sabiha is there. Okay. Sabiha, Yashasvi is going to share a story with you. Please listen to it very carefully and try to grasp it so that you can narrate the same story to the next volunteer, who would be Adil Masood. Okay. Please start, Yashasvi.
Okay. Sabia, I'll go very slow, and if you find any problem, stop me right there.
We have
Okay.
plenty of time, no issues.
So the caselet is about a company Ford and a company TRW. In 1991, Ford issued a tender kind of thing to TRW, and TRW is a company which is responsible for the mass production of airbags, which is a parachute-like structure. Whenever an accident happens, it explodes and it helps the driver to prevent injuries. So in 1991, what happened is the caselet is about barcodes importance, that why barcodes are important for airbags, like for the safety, for the detection of like which airbag is faulty. You getting my point? Okay, so the caselet started with the fact that the Ford was in collaboration with TRW for the production of airbags in their cars, and at that point of time, the airbags were in very high demand, and TRW is a company which was responsible for the harvesting the experimental results to mass production, that is of what airbags. So what happened is many accidents happened throughout. Sorry, you're muted.
Could you repeat that line again, please?
Okay, so at that point of time, many companies had this mindset that airbags are required for their cars because they prevent injuries while they are indulged in accidents. So what happened is at that point of time, many accidents were happening, and they know that airbags are at fault, but they exactly didn't know which airbags are at fault. So the TRW, what they did was they issued a multi-million tender for something, and in the end they had no idea, but they had an estimate that 165,000, that is 165,000 airbags. They estimated that they are at fault, but they had an idea that only 3,000 had at fault. Like they have no clarification that which 3,000. So that's where importance of barcode comes in. So in the start, so to give you a recall, in 1991, the Ford, which is a car making company, had a tender with TRW, and TRW is responsible for mass production of airbags, and they had idea that some airbags are at fault, like an average of 3,000, but they issued to play it safe. They issued a multi-million tender for 165,000 car that their airbags are at fault because if they hadn't, because they knew कि airbags are at fault, but if they hadn't, then legal actions would have been taken against them. So after that, Ford asked TRW to bear the expenses with them as well, because at that point of time, bearing those expenses was extremely high. So the market was in maybe a shake that ki, what is going on, and that is the case. Let I guess. Anam, did I miss any point?
No, now you cannot go back.
Okay, so like I'll give you a quick recap. In 1991, the company Ford, which is a car making company, had a tender with TRW, which is a airbag manufacturing company. Recently, they have seen that some airbags in a few models are at default, and recently an accident also happened, which didn't the driver didn't incur much injury, but they have an idea that 3,000 cars have their airbags at fault, but to be on the safer side, they issued for 165,000 cars, and because they were afraid of bearing, legal actions against themselves. Also, that ki TRW, what the TRW does is ki they put experimental results to mass-produced goods of airbags, and at that point of time, airbags were too much in demand because obviously they prevent injury of the driver while they are indulged in accidents. So at the end, to the benefit of both the companies, the Ford and the TRW, they come to a pact that the Ford and TRW both should bear the expenses for this, and because of that, the expenses were a little high or new to the market, so the whole market was in distress. And because of that, the importance of barcode comes in, that if they had barcodes on the company on the airbag, that would have been better to analyze which airbags exactly were at fault.
Okay.
You got the idea? You want to ask anything?
Yes, I did get the idea. Yeah, I wanted to ask. They said 165,000, right?
165,000, 165,000.
And the real amount, the real count was
Approximate was 3,000, and they should have something multi-million, 1 million something tender for that.
okay. One. Okay. Take it.
In 1991, Ford, TRW.
Okay.
So may I call Adil?
Yes.
Sabiha, are you clear about the case?
Yes, sir. I am clear, but I don't know how well I'm able to explain it to Adil.
If you still have time to seek any clarification which you want from Yashasvi.
Okay. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, please.
Their contract was?
In the end, Ford came to a pact. Maybe it wasn't a contract yet, that both the companies, the Ford and TRW, should bear the equal expenses for this airbag repair or remuneration thing, because it was like 3,000, but they issued for 165,000 cars. That is a lot.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Sabiha.
Yes, sir.
Now we are calling Adil in.
Okay, sir.
So Adil is now back in the class, and Adil, Sabiha is going to narrate a story to you. Okay,
Sure, sir, sure.
please listen to it very carefully,
Yes,
and
sir.
then you are going to narrate the same to Arusa, who would be joining next. Okay, so
Sure,
try
sir,
to
sure, sir.
internalize the content of the story. Okay, Sabiha, please start.
Okay, so basically, the case or the story is about the two companies. One of them is Ford, another one is TRW. So, as we know about uh, they had uh, as we know about the airbags, as you know, the accidents that happen, and it is being saved by the airbags. That is why the contract was made, or rather not a contract, but it was not yet a contract. It was approximately 3000 was the number of the airbags that they had to. Sorry. I'm so sorry. So sorry. So, you know, Adil is laughing. I'm so sorry.
You're doing fine. You talked about two companies, TRW. Adil, you may please keep your video on. Huh? Yes.
Yes. So, as you know, when accidents happen, it's not the driver's fault, of course. Like, I mean, it is, but not really. So, to save that, the cars had issued the airbags, and to know the correct number. The company said it was three. I mean, it was supposed to be 3000, but they mentioned it 165,000. Uh, and they decided at the end that it would both the company would bear the consequences. That is of the airbags. Yeah, that's all I'm able to recall. Should I repeat that again?
You don't need to repeat it, but there are some points that are missing. I would like to ask about them. Could I?
Yes, please, Adil.
You said that both the companies were going to bear the consequences of the what consequences? The cost or
No, they actually it was, I think, 1 billion. Uh,
Sabir, what are the consequences of airbags? I'm just interested in knowing what consequences do airbags carry.
mm,
You're muted. You're muted. Yeah.
yeah, it was about the contract that these guys made. They made a contract of one. It was like billion. I'm not sure, but million, billion. What was that? I forgot.
You said 165,000, and they were supposed to be 3,000 airbags initially. They needed only 3,000
But
airbags.
the faults, actually, the faults. If they wanted to know about the number of, like the faults, as in 3000 was the number, and they gave the number as 165,000 because of the legal things that could have happened later.
So again, the consequence is cost. The extra airbags that were deployed. That's what you mean essentially, right? Sure.
Okay. Any other clarification? You are asking very intelligent questions, Adil, incidentally.
Thank you, sir. Everything else is fine. You could call up the next person, please.
Okay. So, Arusa, make, get in.
I think I remember something else also.
Please do tell.
Yeah, wait. I think it was. About, can I?
Okay, you still have time, Adil.
Sabir, you can tell him. You can tell him. He's listening. He's telling you.
Okay. So can you hear me, Adil?
I can. Please go ahead.
Okay. So that about the airbags that are there in the car that are used for the prevention of accidents, right? So I remember it was about the barcodes. Okay, that what was the importance of barcodes, and it was that to that why barcodes are important, for that to assume that is where the 3,000 was the number that we had to it was the actual number, whereas it was predicted to be 165,000, and there the importance was shown.
Okay. So, Arusa, are you there in the class?
Yes, sir.
Arusa, can
Yes,
you
sir.
switch on your video? So, Adil is going to narrate a story to you. Please listen to it and
Okay.
then narrate the same story to Karan, the last volunteer.
Arusha, shall I start?
Please.
See, the case study is about a contract between two companies, TRW and Ford. See, Ford is, Ford manufactures cars, of course. And this is about a time where airbags were being deployed in cars. An accident happens front to prevent any injury to the driver.
Adil,
Right?
you may have to repeat some. There's some
Your
disturbance.
words are
The
not
voice
clear.
is breaking.
Is my
Yes,
voice clear now?
yes, very much. Now it's clear.
So, Arusa, the case study is about a contract between two companies, TRW and Ford. Ford manufactures cars, right? And it is about airbags. Ford needed some airbags for its cars in order to avoid any injury that might happen to the passengers and the driver in an accident. And there was some miscommunication regarding and miscalculations regarding the number of airbags that they would be needing. They ordered 165,000 airbags for their cars apparently, and at the end of it, all they needed was 3,000. So you see the big disparity between the numbers. 162,000 extra airbags were asked from TRW, and at the end it was decided that both the companies would bear the extra costs that they had incurred in these 162,000 airbags. There was something regarding barcode too, but I didn't quite get that. You could ask if you have any question.
No questions.
Okay, so Arusa, now can we call Karan in the class? And please narrate
Yes,
this story to Karan.
I have texted him, sir.
Just one question, Adil. Is this a case study?
Yes, based on true stories.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, Karan, are you in the class?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Karan, please switch on your video
Yes.
and listen to this story which Arusa is going to share with you.
So
And
basically, Karan, there is a case study where there is a contract between two companies, that is Ford and TWM. I don't remember the name properly. TMW. So, see, what happened there was, as Adil told, they had to make some amount of airbags for the Ford company, but the numbers were little less. So that's it, I guess. But as I have read earlier, I think this was not the case. The case was, can I, sir?
no, but what you have got, actually, you have to narrate that.
what I have got. So I have
Yes,
got
from
that.
Adil. From Adil.
So they have to manufacture some amount of airbags, but they did. The whole amount was not produced, or not contracted, or whatever the situation was. So due to which that some problem is there, I guess, and some barcode related issue which we don't know.
So that's all, Arusa. So now, Karan, whatever you have got, can you share that with the entire class?
Yes, sir. Sir, what I understood is that so the demand was there, but the company was not able to satisfy it. That's what I'm getting.
So that's the story that you have got. Okay. So, Anam, what happened?
I'm sorry, sir. Sir, I started with a full play. Like it went well till Yashasvi. Yashasvi narrated well. Then Savya took a short summary of that whole thing. Till then, it was also fine. But Karan actually gave a new dimension to this whole story, which was not even included in here.
I am very bad at Chinese whisper, and it's hence proved.
No, actually, we were all well intentioned. Nobody distorted the message
No, sir.
consciously, isn't it?
No,
It
sir.
just happened.
So that's the observation that initially it was a like it was a full story, which actually now it's just, I think it's a 4 line summary that has been left.
So it's usually the person catch something in a story that is related to him or he wants to. In a whole of our story or rather a case, a person is always attracted to something that is easier for him to remember or something like that, and then it goes on and on.
Yes, sir. We can say that if it starts from
Just a minute
this
before
much.
we analyze this whole thing, I would wish Karan reads the original story. And the original story was like this: that in 1991, Ford learned an expensive lesson in the value of barcodes. The problem arose when Ford found out that some airbags in its cars might leak burning gases as they unfurled during an accident, endangering the drivers they were meant to save. The airbags supplied by a company called TRW demonstrates the hazards of converting an experimental technology into a mass-produced good. An airbag is a complex system made up of sensors that detects an impact and then explodes, releasing a small bag of gas which temporarily inflates a parachute-like balloon to cushion the occupant from the impact of an accident. It is one of the most in-demand safety features on the new cars today. To meet the demand, TRW tried to accelerate production by using robots to automate tasks which were previously performed by hand. But an out-of-tolerance machine damaged the threading on the joint in the airbags, which might have allowed a few airbags to spill their gases. No injuries have occurred because of the defect, and TRW stressed that only few airbags had the defect. The only problem was that no one knew which airbags had the defects. For neither TRW nor Ford had used barcodes or any other system to identify individual airbags or the production lots they came from. What should Ford managers do? If they ignored the defect, someone might eventually be hurt, either from the gases or from an improperly cushioned impact. Furthermore, the company would be legally liable for ignoring a known product hazard. To play it safe, Ford issued a multi-million-dollar recall of 165,000 cars, even though the best estimates indicated that little more than 3,000 cars had the defective airbags. Ford also announced that it expected TRW to share the expenses. Further, it renewed its contract with TRW, assigning 20% of its airbags business to TRW competitors. with plans to routinely buy airbags from multiple sources by the mid-90s. This was a major blow to TRW and left industry observers shaking their heads over the hidden expense of not using barcodes. So, Karan, how much did you get in the end? Not even 0%, is it? Because he got a different, he gave a different twist and dimension to. Because what happens is, when we are not able to make a sense of the story, we create our own story, isn't it? This is where that is why we have that quote. We don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. हमारे जहन में जो चल रहा होता है दिमाग में हम so maybe Karan is concerned about this demand and supply kind of situation, isn't it? And so he created a story around that, isn't it? When the original story didn't make sense to him. And now, in the context of this, let us analyze. All six of you were picked up on based on your communication competence, and you were a best pace of the class. Even then, this is the outcome. So, what could be the reason? What barriers occur in communication? Why communication gets so much distorted?
So first thing might be that we do not ask back enough. If we find any holes or if we find anything missing from the case, we just tend to simply fill it on our own. कि भाई ऐसा हुआ होगा मुझको लग रहा है. We don't ask enough from the original source.
So, shortly I will come to this communication process. And in the communication process, you have two parties, the sender and the receiver, isn't it? And there is a feedback. So, yes, it is the responsibility of the sender as also the receiver to use feedback effectively, isn't it? So, Adil very politely pointed out that if there are holes in the story, there are some missing links in the story, it is our responsibility to clarify those holes. But what generally happens is we make presumptions that ऐसा हुआ होगा, isn't it? And often these presumptions are based on our own thought processes. What is at the top of our mind at that point of time? So the story actually was about barcodes and the importance of barcodes. But ultimately, because we are management students, so we thought demand and supply is the key concern, isn't it? So actually, it is our collective mindset. Maybe I don't know how many are there some engineers also in this group. So if, for example, there were engineers in the group, they would have kept their focus on barcodes because that is the thing which they might have appreciated better, isn't it? So yes, Adil, you have pointed out this point, a very important point, that we do not use feedbacks effectively. Each one of us has this option, had this option, that we can clarify, we can connect the dots if there are missing links, but perhaps we presumed so many things. Any other factor which might have gotten? Sabiha, what is your own analysis?
So I think I forgot the main lead. So next time it's going to be that what the case is all about. That's the major thing. Rather than remembering the history and the upcomings, a person should be clear about the concept, the main idea or agenda of the
Very nice.
case.
Yes, very
Yes.
Actually, what happens is, now this is a very important point that Sabi has made. Why message gets distorted? Facts become sacrosanct, not the message. So 165,000 became a sacrosanct thing, and it has to be or TRW, and it has to go like that only. Somebody could have simply said, okay, there was a supplier. It is immaterial whether his that supplier's name is TMW or TRW or TW. He was a supplier of airbags to to the Ford company. That's all. And later on, they resorted to a multi-vendor policy. There was no need of any remembrance of the facts. But I think, Sabiha, this is the core of the message of communication. In fact, I read it in one of the Urdu book I was reading, and the title was Zarguzisht. The fellow was a banker, so instead of Sarguzisht, Zarguzisht is autobiography. He wrote Zarguzisht. Zar is paisa. So he wrote in his foreword कि जब मैं अपनी जिंदगी पे गौर करता हूँ तो ऐसा लगता है कि पेड़ गिनता रह गया और जंगल की हकीकत न समझ सका. Actually, this is what happens with many of us. We get lost in the maze of facts and happenings of the day rather than looking at the broader, larger picture. So this, I think, was one of the major reasons we were too obsessed with the facts. And this is a phenomena which in communication parlance, in terms of barriers, we call information overload. We are all faced with this situation of information overload. We are being bombarded with facts from all sides. And in this cacophony of facts, if we are able to discover the music of life, then that's communication. The cacophony dominates. As I said, 165,000 was immaterial. Somebody could have said only less than 2% cars had the defective airbags. But all 100% lot was called back. That would have communicated them. Isn't it? So, information overload, especially in this world of social media, WhatsApp, Twitter and all that, we are getting lost in the maze of this heavy information which is bombarded at us. Okay, so very right, Sabiha. This was one of the major problem, I think, getting lost. And any other input from especially participants first, and then we will come to the group.
So I don't know if I am right or not, but I think so jotting down points can actually help in not getting lost. For example, when I was telling telling the whole summary of this case study to Yashasvi, I would have been more clear if I would have jotted down some of the points, not all of them, but at least the crux of all of this, so that I could have been more clear to her. And although she actually delivered all the points that I told her, so I think she did a really good part. So if jotting down points can actually help us, I think we can do it. Yeah.
Actually, the point that you're making is that if there are some facts which help build up the story, and this is a learning for all of us, that we can have our cue cards with us if we have to refer to facts. But again, the larger point continues to be that if the message is clear to us, The storyline should be ours. We can even twist the facts. As I said, somebody could have simply said less than 2% cars had the defective airbags. That would have conveyed the message.
To be more
You are,
precise, right, sir? To be more precise.
pardon?
Sorry, sir. I'm saying the facts can be just precise so that it can be.
Facts. Why do we need facts? We need facts to bring concreteness to our expression, isn't it? But again, concreteness of the message is more important. If we would have compromised on the facts, not discussing, let us say, 165,000 cars, we could have simply said a huge number was sent to the market, and only less than 2% had the defective airbags, but they didn't know which of these cars. And in fact, these less than 2% might never meet with an accident. So nobody would have known actually, might have known. But even then, Ford took a conscious decision that if, God forbid, an accident happens and it happens in one of these defective cars which had the defective airbags, then somebody might be hurt and then they would be liable. So it was it could be a pragmatic decision, it could be an ethical decision. But ultimately, Ford decided to recall all the cars from the market. Okay. So facts are sacrosanct only to the extent that they support the story. So as I said, if we get lost in the maze of facts, I think we better avoid facts. We focus on the message. Yes. Any
Also, sir, yes, sir.
what is your take on this?
So the fact that we were told beforehand that we have to relay this information to other persons, so the pressure of telling everything that you're getting was also hampering the thought process. Like I have to get every information, like each piece of information should be imprinted on my mind, and I have to relay the same to the other person. So the pressure that maybe Sabiha or the others were feeling, and even in fact I was feeling that if I messed up, the whole process, the whole chain will mess up. So the pressure is very important that is being put on the information relayer, maybe that is hampering the maybe the thought process, or like the processing of or whatever we are perceiving from the other person.
And I think this is one of the major, this is also one of the learning which we have from it. That some of us start from a mindset, there is certain expectations which may not be the expectation. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल मैं अपने माइंडसेट को बताता हूँ. एज टीचर्स हमारा क्या माइंडसेट होता है? हमारा माइंडसेट ये होता है कि हमें लोगों को ज्ञान बांटना है, कोई प्यासा ना रह जाए. और आज तो सब कुछ सिखा के ही भेज देना. Those who operate with this mindset, what happens to them? Generally they would deliver classes in lecture mode, क्योंकि जितना आप लेक्चरिंग करेंगे उतना ही आप ज्ञान बांटेंगे. अब उनके ये जहन में बिल्कुल नहीं होगा कि उस ज्ञान को कितना एब्जॉर्ब कर पा रहा है दूसरा आदमी, है ना. इसीलिए किसी ने कहा कि टीचिंग इज नॉट अबाउट फिलिंग द पेल, इट इज लाइटिंग द कैंडल. मेरी कामयाबी एज ए टीचर तब है कि जब आपके अंदर मैं शौक पैदा कर दूं, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली इट इज योर जर्नी, isn't it? तो अगर मैं शौक नहीं पैदा कर पाया और ज्ञान बांटता रहा, क्योंकि योर एक्सपेक्टेशन इज नॉट टू रिसीव ज्ञान, बट आई हैव दिस एक्सपेक्टेशन. And trust me, I may be overgeneralizing, but this is one of the key communication problems that all teachers face. They carry this mindset in the in their homes also. और हजरत अली का कौल मैं आपसे शेयर करता हूं कि आप वो तालीम ना दीजिए जो आपके वक्त में आपको दी गई, क्योंकि आपके बच्चे उस माहौल में नहीं पैदा हुए जिसमें आप पैदा हुए। क्या हम लोग ये कोशिश नहीं करते कि सारी चीजें मैं जो जानता हूं वो सिखा दूं? इवन द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ राइट एंड रॉन्ग जो मेरे वक्त में सही था वही सही है। So I think this is one of the major barrier of communication. When we have certain mindsets and we start parading those mindsets for others to imbibe and absorb in toto. So we had certain expectations कि अगर हमने किसी भी फैक्ट पे कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर दिया तो सर नाराज हो जाएंगे, कहेंगे कि ये तो स्टोरी इन्होंने यहाँ बिगाड़ दी। लेकिन मेरा मकसद तो उस मैसेज को पहुंचाना था। व्हाट वाज द मैसेज? फैक्ट्स वर सेकेंडरी। एनी अदर थिंग from the participant? Karan, what is your Karan? Your Karan, I think, was the most disadvantaged one in the entire thing, isn't it? Arusa, what is your assessment?
So I got nothing. All I got was there was something like they have to manufacture something, but they did. This was all I got. The main point was missed. Ki barcode. I don't know what barcode is. Khatam. Tata. Goodbye.
Okay, so let us now ask the audience who are witness to it if they have some observations.
Sir?
Yes, Ali.
Yes, sir. So what I think that the leader.
Please switch on your video. That would be better. Switch on your video, please. Yes.
So what I think that the one who is the narrator or the where idea generates, I mean the leader. So leader has worked upon the idea. He has worked hard. He has retained. I mean kind of meditation. The hard work the leader does, and the links which are in between, there simply comes emotions, their own thought processes. Like Adil also mentioned that there is no cross questioning, that if the link is suggesting that this idea is conveyed by the person behind me, and no one is just they are carrying they are carrying forward the idea with their own perception, and they have not worked hard. So here what happens is like Anam has read the paragraph for 2 to 3 minutes. She has worked upon that 2 to 3 minutes, but the persons who are waiting outside in the lobby, they just simply came and the one narrates them in a gist form, and they simply pass the idea. They haven't worked upon that. This is the main problem, sir. What I think what happened in leadership and the communication and the receiver.
This could be one of the reason what Talim you're saying, that the reason could be that sometimes we take things too superficially, and we have a task in hand, we want to finish it anyhow. And yes, Anam, you are very right. She worked on the idea. She took full time to grasp the idea, but maybe others were. And in fact, there are complex factors at play. We can't we can't blame that they did a superficial job just straight, because sometimes what happens is there are emotional barriers also. So, for example, the mindset with which we come, like for example, if by the time Sabiha comes or Urusa comes, people are smiling and they are not very serious about it. So the person may also feel कि भाई ये कोई तमाशा सा हो रहा है कि अब मुझे पॉइंट आउट करने के लिए बुला लिया गया है या मेरी लैग पुलिंग होगी यहाँ एंड ऑल दैट, isn't it? So we may have our own emotions at work, and because of that we may not focus on the task. We may be swayed by those emotions. कि क्या मुझे कोई मजाक बनाने के लिए बुलाया गया है यहाँ? Isn't it? That I will be doing a lousy job and then people will laugh at me. Isn't it? So yes, your broad point is, Tadim, well taken, that every task requires preparation, hard work.
And sir, one point I can add that this is the main point that many times any movement lose its momentum. That from its initial phases when it begins, when it carry forward for a long period of time, it loses its momentum. This is thing.
अगर आप इसको देखिए, इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में सोचें कि अगर ये 6 लोग जो थे और वॉलेंटियर्स, अगर हम इनको ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में 6 हायरार्किकल लेवल्स मान लें, टॉप से एमिनेट हुआ मैसेज और वो नीचे लेटर से फ्रंट लाइन वर्कर तक जाना है, इस प्रोसेस में कितना डिस्टॉर्शन हो जाता है फॉर वैरायटी ऑफ रीजंस. वन कुड बी व्हाट यू हैव पॉइंटेड आउट, the lack of enough seriousness on the part of everyone, for example, for whatever reason, isn't it? So this actually demonstrates that. और अच्छा मान लीजिए एक और फैक्टर इसमें, अभी we have not discussed that factor, but that's a very important factor, language. यहाँ 6 लोग वो थे जो एक पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज में कंफर्टेबल थे. Just imagine a situation where you have frontline workers who are comfortable only in their regional language. A message emanate हुआ English में. What will be its fate when it reaches to the 6th level or 5th level in the organization? So, yes, any other observation from the participants, from the audience? And then we will come to a PPT which will put it together, all the points that we have been discussing.
Sir, one more point, sir. So that everyone's wisdom is not equal, sir. They think not everyone is so much मतलब कि सबकी अकल एक समान नहीं होती सर, वो अपने हिसाब से चीजों को मैनिपुलेट और सोचते हैं. I think sir.
That personal differences will always be there naturally. Overall personal differences, the level of the participants, and but I was also talking about the situation here and now. That is the emotions that were at play, isn't it? So yes, there could be personal barriers also. For example, I pointed out one amongst them. I am not comfortable, for example, in, let us say, English language. So that would be my personal barrier. And I don't understand what is the barcode. I've never come across this term, for example. जैसे हम अक्सर डॉक्टर्स के पास जाते हैं तो जिस तरह से वो अपना एनालिसिस पेश करते हैं, हम में से कितने समझ पाते हैं? Sometimes we use technical language. Every profession has a technical language. Even Karan's use of demand and supply, I would call it a technical language. For management students, it comes naturally. For engineering students, barcode would come naturally, but not to everyone. So there are barriers. Yes.
Sir, what I've also observed, the concept we learned that bounded rationality was actually applicable here. That we could not, we could not jot down everything which was going on in the case study. So there was a bounded rationality that we were talking about the other day.
Yes. So we have, so focus should not be on information. The focus should be on patterns. I repeat that point, missing woods for the forest. हम पेड़ गिनते रह जाएं अगर हमें फॉरेस्ट को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए कहा जाए, that's not communication. The reality of the forest है, it is much bigger than the number of trees in it. But often we are too obsessed with the English expression is missing woods for the forest.
Sir, I also observe that the
Yes.
shorter the communication chain is, the better information is delivered.
Very true. Very true, Vanshika. That is why we are recommending flat organizations also. लेकिन फ्लैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में फिर और प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है, दूसरे तरह की प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. उसमें ये एज्यूम किया जाता है कि आपके पास जो लोग हैं दे आर सेल्फ ड्रिवन, isn't it? अब let us consider the vice chancellor, the poor fellow of our university. Why I'm saying poor fellow? Around 100 people report to him directly. In a particular day, is it humanly possible for a vice chancellor to interact with so many people? बल्कि आप अगर तीनों स्ट्रीम्स को ले लें तो 100 से ज़्यादा ही हो जाएंगे. भाई आपके 15 हॉल्स हैं तो 15 प्रोवोस्ट हो गए, है ना. की फंक्शनरीज जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के हैं उनको ले लीजिए, एफओ है, वाइस रजिस्ट्रार है, कंट्रोलर है, प्रॉक्टर है, फिर एमआईसीज हैं, कितने एमआईसीज हैं जो डायरेक्टली रिपोर्ट करते हैं वाइस चांसलर, फिर सारे चेयरमैन हैं, डिपार्टमेंट्स के डीन्स हैं. इज इट ह्यूमनली पॉसिबल फॉर द वाइस चांसलर? तो अब उसमें क्या होता है, फिर लेयर्स क्रिएट करते हैं, उसी से फिर डिस्टॉर्शन हो जाता है कि भाई प्रोवोस्ट का कोऑर्डिनेटर जो है वो डीएसडब्ल्यू होगा. अब उससे क्या होता है कि भाई डीएसडब्ल्यू सबकी बात पहुंचा पाता है कि नहीं पहुंचा पाता है. गर्ल्स हॉल्स की अलग प्रॉब्लम होती हैं, बिल्कुल गर्ल्स में पीजी हॉल्स की अलग प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं, अंडर ग्रेड्स की अलग होती हैं. तो अगर आप कॉम्प्रोमाइज करें तो फिर उसका असर दूसरा पड़ता है, पूरा मैसेज नहीं. तो देयर इज ऑलवेज ए ट्रेड ऑफ दैट वी आर ट्राइंग, बट आइडियली if we have a flat organization, it leads to better, swifter decision making. Yes. Can we put it together now through this PPT which I have prepared for you? Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So actually we were talking about this communication process, and our point was that there are two parties involved. There is a sender and there is a receiver at the other end. And then what sender does? The sender encodes the message, isn't it? So for example, Anam did it first for the group, and naturally for encoding you need a medium. So we could use naturally oral medium, or we can use verbal, or we can use written medium also. So whatever way, I mean, somehow the message has to be encoded. It has to be, because the idea is ours, but we need to use a vehicle, expression to communicate that idea. And then the message through a medium, actually it should be medium over here, not message. So after encoding we have the message ready, and we use a medium through which the idea is communicated, and it reaches to the receiver who decodes the idea. Medium I'm referring to, like for example, Anam had the advantage that she had the idea was communicated to her through written mode, isn't it? So she was reading as also listening, isn't it? So you complimented her that she did a good job. Yes, she did a good job, and no doubt about it. But she had the advantage because she had the appropriate medium. For fact, based communication, written mode is always better. The retention is better. So this is one message which we get out of this, that we need to use appropriate medium for communicating our idea. And then the sender decodes, the receiver decodes And the receiver has the option of feedback always. So Adil was making a special mention of this, that some of us tried, but some of us did not try that hard to get to the core of the idea. What is the core idea? What is the message? So, and this happens because there is a noise which is prevailing. The noise actually could be at all levels. It is indicated only at the message level. Actually, the noise could be physical noise also, or it could be anything which causes disturbance in the message. The disturbance could be emotional, for example. I'm calling that barrier. So our own emotional state. If we are in a heightened emotional state, heightened in terms of feeling elated or feeling sad or feeling apprehensive, whatever is the emotional state, that acts as a barrier to communication. So now let's come to the next slide. What are the barriers which we encountered in this and even otherwise we can encounter? So one of the major, I think I started with this, one of the major barrier in today's present day kind of world is this information overload. We are bombarded with messages of all kinds. बिल्कुल सिचुएशन ऐसी होती है जैसे आप रेलवे प्लेटफॉर्म पे खड़े हों और हर तरह का अनाउंसमेंट हो रहा हो, गाड़ी आने का भी हो रहा है और ये आदमी को उस ऑफिस में रिपोर्ट करना है. और I mean, when you have so many messages coming in, we often miss out the key message, which is for us, because there are so many things which are circulating. So information overload in the present day world is we are getting lost in the maze of information. Then semantic barriers. Semantic are language related barriers. I told you one such message, for example, technical language, jargons, use of heavy jargons, barcodes, for example, or demand and supply gap. All these are jargons to me. Every profession has its own jargons. So our ability to communicate the message simply without a jargon infested language, that's one of the major. Sometimes accents could also get in. Accent could be one of the reasons. And we know, for example, especially about English, and I face this situation when I conduct teachers training programs. I mean, the language is the medium is English language generally, but the way a Bengali would speak English and the way a Keralite would speak English, the way a Kashmiri would speak English is very different. And sometimes to me, when I assess their presentations, it becomes very difficult to understand just because of their accents. And then emotional barriers I have already talked about, our own emotional state. If we are feeling apprehensive, इसीलिए कहा जाता है कि जब आप गुस्से में हो तो कोई फैसला न कीजिए और बहुत खुश हो तो कोई प्रॉमिस न कीजिए. ये दोनों चीजें जो हैं, चाहे आप गुस्से में हो तो उस वक्त फैसला करेंगे तो अच्छा नहीं होगा, और बहुत खुश हैं वक्ती तौर पे और उस वक्त किसी से वादा कर लेंगे कि मैं ये करने जा रहा हूँ, हो सकता है वो वादा जो है वफा ना हो पाए. तो even having that even emotional state is a prerequisite of good communication. तो फिजिकल बैरियर्स भी आजकल बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट हो गए हैं. जैसे वन ऑफ द फिजिकल बैरियर मुझे लगता है आज की तारीख में सबसे ज़्यादा जो हम यही एक्सरसाइज अगर ऑफलाइन मोड में क्लास में कर रहे होते, एक उसकी अलग लर्निंग होती. बहुत से इसमें बैरियर्स आ जाते हैं, लेकिन जब क्लास में होते हैं तो पता चला मान ली पंखा चल रहा है, उसकी आवाज़ आ रही है, देयर कुड बी फिजिकल नॉइज. अभी मैं क्लास ले रहा हूँ, देयर इज अ ट्रक पासिंग बाय माय हाउस, so there's all kind of the such physical barriers are also getting into communication. Organizational barriers we have already discussed, major being the hierarchy that is there in the organization. That's the major barrier of communication. और उसी से हायरार्की से माइंड सेट्स भी डिफरेंट हो जाते हैं. एंड आई हैव आल्सो टॉक्ड अबाउट द पर्सनल बैरियर्स. जैसे तालीम ने कहा कि हमारा कॉम्पिटेंस लेवल अलग हो सकता है, हमारा लैंग्वेज का कंफर्ट लेवल अलग हो सकता है. So that all may contribute to the barriers of communication. So I'll stop here this sharing part at this juncture, but we still have 3-4 minutes left. So if you have some questions which you want to discuss now in the context of what I have discussed, what is the way out? How can we handle these barriers? Is there a way out? Again, I would ask participants first, and now they know the barriers. They also know where the fault might have occurred and what could have been the way out. Because Anam has very rightly noted that till Yashasvi, things were going fine, isn't it? And afterwards, the distortion started setting. And again, I repeat, it happened unintentionally. Nobody desired to distort them, but it happened. And I selected people on whom I trusted for their communications. But still, this is what happened. So what do you think could be the way out?
So we should short the communication line, the communication or the message which passes through different nodes. As many nodes, as many noises, and the distortion happens. Funneling happens in this process of communication.
Sometimes, yes, this if it is possible. I've told you organizations world over are evolving flat structures for that reason only. But I've also told you the problems. It overburdens the CEO, isn't it? And again, there could not be a ideal level suggested, okay, only one level or two levels. It depends on the organization. So yes, the one solution could be overall flat communication. It puts a lot of demands on the chief person. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मैंने अपने एक उस्ताद हैं सुनील हांडा साहब, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन चलाते हैं वो अहमदाबाद में. उनके यहाँ एक HR पॉलिसी है, एवरी एम्प्लॉय ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विल गेट 2 opportunities in a year to interact with the chief for 30 minutes. अब ये कह देना बहुत आसान है, इस पॉलिसी को बना लेना, लेकिन आप ये सोचिए कि हाउ मच प्रेशर इट वुड हैव पुट ऑन द चेयरमैन ऑफ द कंपनी. आपके इंस्टीट्यूशन में अगर 200 लोग हैं, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में टीचर्स और नॉन टीचिंग सबको मिला लीजिए आप, और ये तो सिर्फ एम्प्लॉयज हैं. आपके यहाँ 2000 बच्चे भी पढ़ रहे हैं. But for employees, he does it religiously. हर दिन उनके शेड्यूल का आधा घंटा इसमें जाता है कि एक एम्प्लॉय से उनको स्ट्रक्चर्ड वे में, वो बिल्कुल पहले से लोगों को पता होता है कि आज किसकी मुलाकात होनी है सर. So that is one way to create a flat organization. टीचर्स स्टूडेंट्स के साथ उनके HRD सेशंस अलग होते हैं, जो रेगुलर पढ़ाई चलती रहती है वो अलग चलती रहती है. एंड दैट इज व्हाई आई थिंक इन 18 odd years of its existence, it has become the best school of Western India. Eklavya School को आप देखिए. तो फ्लैट स्ट्रक्चर हो बहुत अच्छा है. और if you have a chief executive who can live up to the demands of that. और ऐसे नहीं है कि वाइस चांसलर्स ने इस चैलेंज को फेस नहीं किया. We have had some very successful vice chancellors on this account. जैसे I remember one vice chancellor despite being so busy with everything, he used to go to a department and engage a class with the students. क्योंकि उनका कहना था कि इससे जो है एक जो कनेक्ट होता है स्टूडेंट से वो डिफरेंट तरह का, तो दैट्स पॉसिबल।
सर कौन थे वो?
प्रोफेसर नसीम फारूकी थे, वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स के प्रोफेसर थे, आईआईटी खड़गपुर से आए थे। तो वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स डिपार्टमेंट जाते थे और 8 बजे मतलब सुबह पहली क्लास लेके तब फिर ऑफिस आते थे। So you can imagine how tough it would have been for him to negotiate the demands of the day. लेकिन कुछ ना कुछ देखिए एक्स्ट्रा करना पड़ता है, कम्युनिकेशन बैरियर्स को खत्म करना। और ये सिर्फ मैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, फैमिलीज में भी होता है। हमारे एक उस्ताद हैं प्रोफेसर अब्दुल रहीम कजवाई साहब, अंग्रेजी के हैं। तीनों बच्चे जो हैं उनके दे हैव एक्सेल्ड इन लाइफ, और उनका एक वो था कि हर बच्चे के साथ उनका आधे घंटे का वक्त हर हफ्ते तय होता था। बिल्कुल उसकी बाकायदा प्लानिंग होती थी कि कौन किस दिन मिलेगा, और एक दिन तीनों के साथ एक साथ मिलते थे। And two of his sons, one of them is now doing his PhD in US, in a university in US. He did his MA from Tata Institute of Social Science, and from there he went to States. Two of his sons are Hafiz also, and one of them did engineering from UK. And the third one, he has recently joined UK. There is a South Asian institute there. He topped in the MA English literature and then went to pursue his higher studies there. When he was at the age of 12, he wrote a novel, a mystery for kids, a mystery kind of novel for the kids. So कभी कभी हम दूसरों को ब्लेम करते हैं कम्युनिकेशन के लिए, तो आज की जनरेशन बात नहीं समझती हमारी। लेकिन when we point fingers towards others, 3 fingers are pointing towards us. Okay, so I hope we overcome these barriers when we communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Sir,
much for the
thank you,
wonderful
ma'am.
Thank you, sir.